You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, Shelley, Rostlund.
Hello there, my friend, and we are back for another installment. And can you believe it? We are on episode 50. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Honestly, creating a show and managing to hold someone's attention is quite something. And if you are regular and you keep coming back for more, thanks, man. It honestly means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your golden ears and allocating me a bit of your precious time. I hope I'll make your dog work or car drive or whatever it is you do while you listen to me. I hope I make it worth your while. Remember sometimes that the only way podcast shows really grow is when you, my lovely listener, think of one more person you could recommend a specific episode to. You know the one, and I do this all the time. I listen to an episode of somebody's show and I think, oh my gosh, you know who really needs to hear this? You know, is it Ali or Imogen or Mark or Christian? You know what I mean? And then I send them the link and go, God, you've got to listen to this, add it to your queue. If you could think of someone who you'd like to share the super secret of this show with, make sure you loop them in. I'll look after them. I promise. Okay, let's get on to the topic for today. And I was inspired to dig into this after the last episode where Mark Franklin from our work family came onto the show and we basically chewed the fat on what makes a good podcast show. Go make sure you listen to that. I really, really enjoyed recording that one. I'm sure we could do more of those. It spurred a really different bunch of thought threads for me. And one in particular was about actually that it might be useful to talk about what are these hierarching purposes to podcast shows, if you like. Now, you might not have realized that they are, or maybe once I talk about them, you'll go, oh, I get it now. Yes, you're right, Shelley. This is going to be purely from my point of view. I did start trying to research or Google and find some smarter people than me that came up with this concept already. But I felt like, you know what? I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to share with you what I think. So it's going to be subjective to me. But it might well help you to work out why you actually like some shows and you don't like others, or you're drawn to some over others. But it also might plant a seed of an idea for which type of purpose of show would you like to start for yourself. Does that sound good? All right, let's get into it. Now, I thought a bit about how I could actually frame this for you, just to keep it simple so that between you and I, we can create this kind of common language or phrases or terms that will give us instant insight into what it is that we're talking about. Okay, so here goes. I came up with these 4 podcast show purpose angles, which I'll explain in a second. But before I do, I just want to clarify that these purpose angles can stretch over any genre. So it can relate to shows that are for business, for wellness, true crime, mental health, anything. What we're looking at here is the bigger intention of the show, regardless of the topic or the audience. Okay, so when I explain these purpose types, I want you to think of a show you follow that maybe fits into one of these. And if you are wanting to start a show, reflect on which of these you're drawn most to. Now, there are 2 caveats here for these types that I'm going to go into. Number 1, there is no right or wrong one to have. They are literally just a type, okay? So no one is good or evil, if you like. So you are aware really of the overall intention of the show. Now, the second caveat is a show could start with one purpose angle or intention, but it could actually evolve into another. So those are the only 2 caveats I'd say to my thinking around these 4. All right, let's start. So the first one is the Megaphone. This for me is a show that is clearly positioning to focus on others, i.e. the guests that come on the show, or causes, trends, or topics that are fired up by other people. So the topics and the guests are carefully selected to bring attention to them so that it can be quite outward focused, if you like. So the host and their stake in the topic is almost irrelevant but they still need to be talented enough to drive the conversation and turn up that attention dial. So they still have to be good at what they do. However, over time, this type, I think, can morph into another as the guest perhaps gets closer to a specific topic or more connected to their show, their concept, or potentially their audience, which happens a little bit to most of us podcast show hosts, right? So the example I was trying to think about to share with you from Megaphone is the clear one I could think about was John Lee Dumas. And he started in 2012, he started a podcast show called Entrepreneur on Fire. And what he did is he literally interviewed an entrepreneur every day. I mean, don't think we would do that today. It's just too much work. But nowadays, we've got all the social media and we've got all the short clips. There's so much work that goes more into podcast discovery. But that's literally what he did. And today, he's actually got his own kudos now on what he's achieved since then. And he created a whole big community around it and offers around it. And his show type has changed now. But that, I think, initially, that's kind of how Johnny Dumas actually started out. Next up is the Spotlight. Now, this one is the opposite to the Megaphone. So this is all about the host and making them look good. So every topic or guest that's chosen, if there are guests on the show, it's about positioning the host to look good. It's about polishing them up as much as possible and putting them in the spotlight and creating positioning moments, if you like, with influential guests to create that golden haze of association. Sometimes shows start out as a spotlight in order to gain a fast-rising reputation for the host. And then the show's positioning might again change once that's been reached. Okay, so it might be a short-term strategy to get somebody a higher level of reputation very quickly. Now, I thought long and hard about an example for this, and the only one I could think about really was Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. And I know he's massive now, and I know he works hard. However, everything that they have done on that show has been about making sure that Stephen gets positioned against the best, or he gets positioned next to the best. So I feel like there was a lot of this going on in order to build that show. And I think the show's now gone to a next level, which I don't have a category for, because I feel like it's a unicorn, where his guests are now really being chosen specifically for different reasons and for his audience numbers, because he has high audience numbers now. So there are much bigger deals going on behind the scenes. So for you and me as independent podcast show hosts or consultants, you know, these are deals we wouldn't really even want to touch the sides of, really. So I don't think, but I think from an early enough days, I think you could use that as an example for the spotlights, unless you can think of one you can share with me. The next one is the magnet. So this type of show is just really fun. It's addictive, right? So you'll see a lot of big production companies focusing in on this one. The show is designed to be charming, entertaining, compelling, or enticing enough to make you hungry for more, almost like when you're hungry for box sets and streaming. Think about it on those lines and waiting for the next episode. They're possibly created to grow a strong, loyal listenership, so very sticky listenership, which is a good metric to have. And will more than likely try and attract advertising revenue over time, because with numbers follows money, right? Especially on ears and eyes and, foot. It was bricks and mortar shops obviously go for footfall, but, we're going for ears in podcasting. An example of this, I was trying to think, because I don't actually do a lot of this addictive podcasting. I do in terms of my reading, but not really on podcast shows. But I think if you think of any of the true crime podcast shows or comedies, or, you get those opinion-based shows that are a bit off-center, some of them a bit naughty, some of them are a bit, catchy, things like that. I don't really listen to stuff like that. I mean, I should try, but I haven't yet. But I think if you do that, that's more of a magnet, I would call that. Now, the last purpose type, it's not the least, and it is my favorite one, and I call this one the Torchbearer. Now, this show is all about the important task of carrying the light of a passion outwards into the future. The show's purpose is to keep bolstering the flames of a passion that the host has. Now, the idea is to carefully choose topics and guests who can help to fan those torch flames and keep them going. The host is integral to this type of show. Their expertise, their knowledge, and their passion will just push through everything. If the show is an interview-style show, they'll also be very skilled in questioning and active listening. Think of an Olympic torchbearer, right? They hold that important flame and they take it on a journey to then kick off a huge international sporting event. Something like that. Visualize that. So a torch-bearing show is one that sets the pace, claims the direction of a conversation, and at the same time, it educates, provides insights, prompts thinking, and it just fosters curiosity. And who knows? By the conversations held, they might then change how people think about something or how they actually treat other people. Now, I could come up with loads of examples of this, but I'm going to mention Dr. Louise Newson's podcast show on menopause. So she's been herself a huge torchbearer in the important work that she does. Her podcast show, together with what she does within her clinic, and that are married so closely together, she is a force to be reckoned with, and that comes out really well. So those are my 4 purpose types: megaphone, spotlight, magnet, torchbearer. So what did you think about that? Now, our podcast clients at 𝗦𝗪𝗘𝗟𝗟𝗘𝗬, that's inside my marketing agency, tend to tick the torchbearer type, most definitely. It's the one that I think suits knowledge experts really well, especially those that are wanting to forge a way through in their field to do things differently or bring about change in their industry or even just within their ideal clients' worlds. Although, like I mentioned, it could be that a future torchbearer could start out as a megaphone or a spotlight. And then I'd say they probably get to episode 20 or 30 and the host will start to realize that they have a torchbearer in the making. And then they will just button down and switch gears. Now, bear in mind, guys, there are no hard and fast rules on this. Much like anything, our world revolves around human beings. And podcasting, much like consulting, advising, or training, is based on what's going on in the world and how the humans in it are behaving and what they're leaning into at any point in time. Remember that everything you do is organic and it needs to be able to have the flexibility to adjust to the winds of change that sweep in now and again. Sometimes it knocks us sideways, right? But we need to be flexible. If you can find something that actually keeps you focused even through the center of that storm, and that all you are actually working on now and again is window dressing, but your core good stuff never really shifts, that's when I think you've really found the magic. And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. Did that help you to work out what kinds of shows you like to listen to? It may be that you like a good mix of all of those. I think I'm a mix, really, because I'm more fascinated by the host and the guests and the voices and beautifully articulated conversation. And those are the things I'm really drawn to. So they can pretty much be any one of those types. Let me know those 4 purpose types worked for you the way I explained them. You may well have thought, actually, Shelley, there's another type and I've missed something. Give me a shout. I'm really curious. I obviously operate in my own bubble that I'm in. So let me know what the world looks like from your bubble. And finally, who do you know that could do with hearing this concept of podcast show purpose types? Do you have a friend that you'd like to maybe start a podcast show with? Share this episode with them. See which type they're drawn to. Then you know what? You could always come and chat to me and my team and we could help you get going. All my contact details are in the show notes. And as you know, I'm the only Shelley Rostlund out there. So go on, share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friend, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗦𝗪𝗔𝗍𝗔𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏